everybody, it's Gypsy and welcome to On the Edge of Appalachia. Today is October, I think it's the 27th, and it is Sunday. I'm on my way to the flea market to then. And today I wanted to talk about one of my favorite topics, self-sufficiency. So this kind of came up by accident. My son and daughter and I last night were talking about being self-sufficient and how we let that ancestral knowledge go, which was, I believe, very much to our detriment. And like I explained, I'm not saying don't use technology or modern conveniences. Use them if you want, but always be self-sufficient as a backup. In other words, doing things. All right, I'm 60. I'm going to be 60 next week. So for me, it would be my grandparents and my great-grandparents and how they did things. And we talked about that. So then afterwards, I went into the kitchen because I was putting some chili together to put the Instapot to be cooking today while I'm vending. And I realized when I put it together, the only thing I needed to go to the store and buy for it was the meat. And I'm thinking, I may not have even had to have done that because I may have had a couple jars put up of the meat. I don't know. I'd have to look. But anyways, that's all I went to the store for. The beans, broth, everything I needed. I had put up months ago, a year ago, they were in my pantry. The peppers I had ripening on the countertop. They were from my garden. And I thought, this is what I'm talking about. And I told my son and daughter-in-law this. And I said, this is what I mean. I just put this this meal together, and I only had to go to the store and buy one thing. I said, because I either grew it, I canned it, I preserved it in some manner, and it's been in our pantry. And now we're using it. And it was such a good feeling. It really, really was. You know, and we were also discussing my generator isn't working. We think it's a carburetor. So we were talking about we need to get that fixed. And then also, you know, I lived in the desert for so long, and my son said, he goes, I think it's clogged with sand, so, you know, we have to fix that. But then also my Coleman camp stove, which I love. I have a really nice one. It's not working because I think it's clogged with sand from living in the desert, because when I lived like that, I lived in my travel trailer, totally off-grid. So I cooked outside every night, so it was always out there. You know, and then, you know, after I fell, I had my accident, and I was in the hospital forever, and then they moved me up here back to Ohio, because I couldn't take care of myself. You know, it sat, and the sand sat in there. So, you know, we're talking about getting that stuff fixed, so that if there's another power outage, because we recently had one that lasted anywhere from 5 to 7 days in our area. We had a bunch of tornadoes. You know, after that, it's like, well, it's happened before. It'll happen again. Regardless of what's going on in the world, it will happen again eventually. When? I don't know. But it's good to have that backup. Nobody's saying you have to give up modern conveniences if you don't want to. If you want to, fine. I loved it when I lived in my travel trailer. I had a great time. Nobody's saying you have to. But keep that knowledge. I mean all of it. Not just canning and preserving food. We were talking about how people used to just build their own houses. You didn't hire anybody. You did it yourself. You know, people knew how to fix things. knew how to sew, make your own clothes and stuff, knit, crochet, all this stuff that, you know, we just put by the wayside. Society changed so much. And I'll say it's against some of our will, because not all of us wanted that change. And I would be one of those people who didn't, because I love the old ways. And all those things I mentioned, well, besides building and stuff, I do. I sew, I crochet, you know, I do the canning, all that kind, because I love it. And I know not everyone does. But to me, I felt like I was forced into an era I didn't belong in. And I remember when I was a teenager, my mother said to me one day, she says, "You were born in the wrong era." And I knew what she meant, and I agreed with her at the time. But now that I'm older, I realize, no, I wasn't. I don't like modern living. But many people my age, people who were born in the late 50s and early 60s, they incarnated at that time in order to be the older generation with what is going on now. And I believe, because like I told my son and daughter-in-law, we are probably the last generation who can access this ancestral knowledge, because the majority of us knew our grandparents and saw what they did. I remember sitting, you know, I would watch my maternal grandmother make homemade noodles, you know, just really quick, like she was a ninja. She would roll out that dough, she cut it up. I watched her do a lot of things that were the old way. I mean, even something as simple as I used to sleep over at my grandparents' house nearly every weekend. My grandparents wore dentures. And I remember one time I forgot my toothpaste. So they didn't have any toothpaste in the house. My grandmother goes into the kitchen and she hands me, she pulls out of the cupboard a box of baking soda. And I looked at her, I said, "What's this for?" And she says, "Do you think we always had toothpaste?" She says, "There was not always toothpaste in my lifetime. And this is what we used to clean our teeth with." So, you know, I was impressed. That was one of the first things I remember that got me to thinking, how were things done before all these modern conveniences? Now, I do use baking soda these days. I want no chance of fluoride. We have well water. You know, I don't know what else is in there. I know we don't have fluoride. But that was one of the things that got me thinking. My paternal grandparents, they had a farm. I remember I would follow my grandpap around that farm when I was a little girl. You know, in air quotations, helping him do farm chores. I remember going with him in the cornfield. We would pick corn, bring it back to the kitchen. It would be shocked. My grandma, another ninja with the knife, get those kernels off the cob and immediately put it in a pan and cook up this delicious corn like I never had in the suburbs when I was, you know, a child living there. I saw, you know, my grandmother's garden. My paternal grandmother had her garden. There were all the animals on the farm. I remember there was this, to me the bull looked huge because I was a little girl. His name was Billy. I didn't care for him all that much. He didn't have the most pleasant personality. Grandpap always warned us not to go out there. Well, anyways, one day we had come home from Pennsylvania visiting my grandparents, and my mom made this great dinner with steaks and everything. As we're eating, my dad tells us, well, you know that bull you don't like, Billy? Yeah, this is him. But, growing up in the suburbs, you're like, what? Because you don't think about it when your mom goes to the grocery store. But that is the way things were. Self-sufficiency. Okay? But these are the things I remember learning from my grandparents. I learned how to crochet from my maternal grandmother and my maternal aunt. I learned how to sew, all that stuff. So I feel like, oh, come on, little baby, that black squirrel little thing. They just pop out into the road when I'm driving. So I feel that many of us born in the late 50s, early 60s, on a spiritual level, came to help the younger generations get back their ancestral knowledge. And I'm telling you, I had such a good time with my son and daughter-in-law last night. When we were having the conversation before I made the chili, I hadn't thought about it. We were talking about self-sufficiency and gardening and canning and all this other stuff. And I wasn't thinking about how I got the ingredients for the chili until, we finished talking. I went, oh my God, I forgot to make the chili. And it was getting late and I had to go to bed. So I did that. And that's when I realized as I'm making it, I had all this stuff put up in my pantry. I grew most of it. I'm like, wow. And it is such a good feeling. It really is. And I know there's a lot of people who are not into that kind of stuff. I am, and I do it a lot. Even if you're not into it, learn what your ancestors used to do. Learn that skill. Practice it once in a while. This way, if you ever need it, things go south, and they do, because there is nothing in the physical realm that's permanent. Shit happens. Things wear out, break, or whatever. There's many, many different ways things can, go wrong. Well, you have that knowledge. Okay? And I don't know, this kind of stuff I find exciting. It's kind of like a hobby of mine, but it's not, because, well, look how useful it was to me. I was exhausted last night. I was too tired. Vended all day, came home, and then, I'm going to be gone all day today. And here, instead of having to go to the grocery store and buy all those cans, those aluminum or whatever they make those nasty cans out of, well, I had all my jars that I canned food over their last, year and a half, whatever, throughout the year, to use. So I had like a convenience dinner with everything being homemade, homegrown, if you get what I'm saying. So anyways, I could talk about this subject forever. So I'm going to leave you with that on this beautiful fall morning. Blessed be, and make it a joyful one.